Eight, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Oh, good evening and welcome. Good afternoon and good day. Sorry it's running late. It's just been one of them days. And thank you for Heidi for staying and doing the show tonight. So I'd like to welcome Heidi Hollis. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
So can you tell everyone a little bit about yourself for those who don't know?
I guess I'm most known for having named, defined, and told the world, and now even trademarked 2 different paranormal phenomena, the shadow people and the Hatman. I'm an author. I'm a host on Coast to Coast AM's Paranormal Podcast Network. And so I've lectured all over the country, but I have books on everything from angel encounters to Jesus encounters. You can see some of my books here. Hatman. I'm a cartoonist as well, and I'm also an occupational therapist with behavioral health as one of my specialties. So, I'm never bored. And one of the greatest joys is answering people's emails when they've dealt with something like Hatman or shadow people or aliens or had near-death experiences, pretty much anything. So,
yeah, thank you. So, what's your take on the Hatman?
It's funny. People say, what's your position? What's your approach? Well, it was the first approach because I told the world about it. So, right. It's interesting because people think I came to certain awareness of these things, on my own to an extent, but the definitions of what I was dealing with, no. That came from another perspective. My book behind me here, The Secret War, that told them my story while I was in college and having dealt with alien phenomena, ghostly phenomena, and having seen these things I was calling shadow people. And so I always came at it from an angle of something being connected to aliens. That's not a new thing, it's always been. I've always referred to them not being from here. And so it's very much connected to all of it. There's like 2 sides of the phenomenon. There's folks who think, oh, potentially it's benign, and then there's those that know the truth of it. It's not positive. It's horrific. Horrific experiences for the most part. And if it's not there yet in your life, if you're witnessing these things, eventually it works its way in that direction. So,
right. So how did you come about discovering Hatman?
Hatman in particular,
Yeah.
well, he was something that came along later, actually. Not for myself, coming at myself, not in
Yeah.
general when I put it out there. So Hatman, I didn't see him myself. It was my college roommate that did. And I woke up to hearing her screaming. I thought somebody was murdering her. It was like one of those death screams that go on forever that you see in a horror movie. And I'm like, oh no, something's wrong. And I raced over. And, I've never seen somebody try to make themselves super small in horror into a corner of the room. And that's what she was, just crunched down and couldn't barely speak and stuttering. And the words that she could get out were the man, the man. I'm like, somebody broke in, I'm looking around. I'm like, where? And I'm searching around. And finally, when she calmed a little bit, she's like, he disappeared when you opened the door. And it was a great artist, and I asked her to draw for me in my website what it looked like. And that's the famous image that you've seen all over the world that people have taken, that you see on my this Hatman book right here. This is the one. So that's the outline of the image. And but she drew details about his face. He had a goatee. Yeah, so she had quite the experience. So that was the first encounter, and because I hadn't seen him myself, I assumed he was part of the shadow people phenomena that I was dealing with already, and so I called him Hatman Shadow. But it soon was apparent that he stood out from them because he could step out from the shadows and be absolutely solid, wearing clothing even. And as the stories were coming in the thousands, as a regular on Coast to Coast AM with George Norrie, with the first appearance, I had thousands of reports. I was like, what is happening? What is all this? And the pattern was clear who he was, because he was very talkative, unlike the shadow people. And, people would send me questions about him all the time and say, who is he? He's the devil, isn't he? So they would answer their own question. And I was like, over and over and over again. And I started addressing him, in bits and pieces and stuff on different shows. And, but whenever I went to go write the particular book on him, the attacks on friends and family and coworkers was ridiculous. And they always knew to come my way and say, Heidi, what on earth are you working on? Just stop. I can't sleep. And so I'd have to back off. And then I'm like, okay, you guys got to learn how to defend yourselves, because I have to address these emails, and put out a book that was solely dedicated to the topic of him being something that is, it's not a guardian. It's not your friend. He's not benign. He's not neutral. He is the epitome of all things evil. And but it's hard to talk directly about him when shadow people are so prominent and surround the same topic as well.
So is there a connection between him and shadow people?
Yes, that's why I'm saying it's hard to talk about him without saying that. Yeah, so the direct connection to in fact, he kind of directs the shadow people. They're like his minions. He's seen right alongside of them. He's seen right alongside of the old hag and the Grim Reaper looking shadow, alongside of aliens. He's seen, in all of these instances, you're like, what is the connecting factor here? And it's like him.
I was going to say, so he's one of the main connections then with all the phenomena that's going on.
He is,
or a lot of it, I should say.
He is. I mean, he is. I mean, we've skipped a whole lot, just so you know, in trying to get to what he is and
Yeah.
what he does. It's just like, who is he? What does he do? Well, that's the end of the show. But it's like,
we'll work backwards.
well, it's cat's out of the bag. He's the devil, and he'll tell you he is as well. But more importantly, he'll tell you that his name is Hatman now. So
Right.
he gave himself the name I gave him. That's so disturbing. And it's been an interesting. People are like, well, oh, you trademarked this. How could you dare do that? I'm like, did you say that to Stan Lee about Spider-Man? I'm curious.
Yeah.
It's like, what is that? I one of the reasons why I did that was it was getting abused. First off, they're making him into a superhero as a guardian angel.
Right.
People are doing drugs to meet him and sleep with him. It's horrible, sick stuff.
Wow.
And and then I get associated with oh, your film project, your TV show. I don't have anything out there, just so you know. I don't.
Yeah.
And they think that's me doing that. No, it's not. So it needs to be pulled in because there's a lot of abuses happening to people by Hatman. And, and I don't call him, one word like he's Batman, a superhero or crime fighter. I call him the Hatman, without the in there. But, it's just because I don't want to give him respect. I don't,
No.
Yeah,
I know what you mean.
Yeah, it's so horrific what he all entails. And there's a lot to say.
Yeah. So, have you had any direct encounters with him?
Yeah, I did. It's so funny because after my friend, I didn't know the magnitude of what we're dealing with until I started when I would talk about it, and then somebody would get attacked. And the emails were so consistent with what he was doing, what he was wearing, what he was saying. He could get really chatty. His horrific smile that looks very much like Pennywise from the movie It. And I was like, okay, I need to write this book to be specific to him. And right when I was pulling that book together, the one I just showed you, this one right here, that's when I'll put it back over. That's when he decided to come at me. I work as a therapist, practice, occupational therapy, and I would work all over Chicago, and this one facility I went into, they're like, "Oh gosh, this is that therapist that talks about all that weird stuff." I was like, "Oh boy!" So I got the barrage of questions for about 15 minutes, and then one of the physical therapists, had to bring a patient down to work to walk with in the parallel bars, and you're surrounded by mirrors there.
Right.
And the therapist, starts screaming. I'm not in that room. I'm next to it. And runs over to me and says, "Heidi, what you were talking about? Get over here." I'm like, "What? What are you talking about?" I walk over there, and the patient is leaning towards the mirror. This is like out of a horror movie, leaning towards the mirror, saying, "What did you say?" And he's got his ear, and the therapist goes, "What are you doing?" It's like, "I'm talking to the guy with, in the mirror."
Yeah.
And he's like, "He's standing right behind you. Don't act like you don't see him." And we don't see him.
Right.
And he's like, "He's got the suit on. He's all in black." And I said, "Oh no." I said, Is he wearing a hat?" And he goes, "I knew you could see him. See? You're acting like I'm crazy."
Yeah.
And I get chills right now even thinking about it. And then the guy, the patient looks at us like, "Oh, just quit. Get me out of here then. Get me out of here. You guys are going to act like I'm nuts." And I was just like, this is 15 minutes after talking about it.
Yeah.
And took the patient back, out of the room. And the following day, I came back to the same facility, and all the therapists are talking like, "Wow, I wish I was here to see that." And I'm like, Don't say that. I said, "Oh, no." I
Yeah, you're right.
left the room for 10 minutes, came back, guess what?
He was there.
He was back. He was back. Another, the patient was screaming, talking to the
Yeah,
mirror. Yeah, same thing, but, more, so he came indirectly that way. He came a
yeah,
couple times in dreams, and which is where that's his medium, that's where he works.
yeah.
But to be right directly in my face, only shadow people did that. Um,
Right.
but the Hat Man himself, he hates my guts and feelings are mutual. I take it as a compliment.
Wow. So with the shadow people, did did that start first?
For myself, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I grew up in a haunted house, so um,
Right.
I didn't realize that there was a connection between what it was I experienced as a kid and shadow beings, but um, it made sense and once I was understanding what I was dealing with when I was
Yeah.
older. But yeah, I saw a shadow being following a friend of mine, and it was broad daylight. I'm
Oh,
like, wondering, we're walking along and she's just talking, talking, talking. I'm talking with her and I'm looking to my right and I'm seeing something big and black jump from a tree to a bush.
yeah.
And, I'm getting good glimpses at this thing and it's huge. And I don't know what to tell my friend. I'm like, I'm just gonna pretend I didn't see this. But it followed us all the way where we're going. And sometime later, maybe an hour, we had to walk back.
Yeah.
And it followed us all the way back. And I was staying at my friend's house at the time, and I it followed us all the way there, and I'm like, I'm a cartoonist, I'm like,
Yeah.
"Okay." I tell my friend, I said, "Look, I don't know what I just saw following us." I said, "But I just saw this." And I drew what I call the head and shoulder shadow, which kinda looks like a guy with its, head directly connected to his shoulders, but
Oh,
it kinda looks like that guy.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And, so but it was huge, and I draw this thing out, and I'm thinking my friend is gonna, start laughing, but instead she goes, "Oh, that guy. Yeah, I don't know. That guy's been following me since I was a kid." I'm like,
Oh,
"What?" Yeah, and
jeez.
she calls her dad, "Hey, dad, look. Hey, look what Heidi just saw." He goes and her dad's like, "Oh, is he back?" Ah, and I'm just like, "What on earth?" And they're like,
Wow.
"Yeah, the dad would chase it out of the room. It would hide underneath their bed." And I'm like, "Oh, man, I don't know what I was seeing." So I'm staying on their second floor. I had to
Yeah.
go upstairs to grab something, and I grabbed what I needed out of the room I was staying in, turned around to leave,
Yeah.
and it was standing there, blocking my way out, just hulking over me. And I don't even know how to describe that kind of fear because oddly, I knew it wanted to kill me. I knew
Yeah.
it was angry that I saw it. And I also knew if I ran, it was going to get me, or if I swung at it, it was going to get me. So I just kind of closed my eyes and started saying a prayer and slowly walked through it to get
Yeah.
away. And from that point on, my life was infested with shadow people.
Wow. That's mad. So, are these shadow people? Can they shapeshift into any form, or do they have a particular form that they stay with?
So like I have my lovely little this is my other book on shadow people.
Yeah.
So you'll see over here is a shadow spider. That's the one that I saw the most actually.
Right.
Horrendous, horrendous. Sometimes they could make themselves appear to be a straight up like spider, like you think a giant
Yeah.
man-eating spider is there in your room. Um, and then like this one over here, that one gets confused for being a shadow being, but that's not. That's an alien. Um, but they could be like shadow cats, shadow streaks, shadow clouds. They take all sorts of forms. I've heard of shadow rodents.
Right.
Yeah, so they shapeshift into all sorts of things. I mean, they're just but the head and shoulder looking shadow one,
Yeah.
that one is like a form that they take when they kind of mean business.
Right.
And there's a big part here that people have to understand. It's like I'm like the first person to ever like discover, right? Find and name these things and
Yeah.
put it out there, right? And people are like, wow, you just like, just shot it off. Boom, boom, boom. I'm like, I suffered a lot.
Yeah.
And I was like, it was no fun. And I didn't know what I was dealing with, having had the hauntings,
Yeah.
having seen many UFOs, having even seen alien beings, uh, having seen angelic beings. I'm like, I am really unlucky. Like, why I keep seeing these things? I never claimed to be a psychic or a guru because I
Yeah.
think that's a certain thing that you have to work on. I can't call on these things to work.
Yeah.
They just happen when they do. So to get an understanding of what I was dealing with actually came from interactions that I had and my college roommate had with some alien beings, believe it or not.
Right.
I was really stunned by that. Like, it's just a crazy, crazy story. But that's what my book, The Secret War, is based
Yeah.
on. And I'm
Ah,
actually about
right.
to have
Okay.
that put back into print. It's been only as an ebook.
Yeah.
And I tell you, oh my gosh, people really like, when are you putting it back in print? I thought it is so old.
Yeah.
And it was my first book. I was in college. I didn't write as well as I do now. And I always cringed, like, oh, you read that? I know I got some goofs in there.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, this book's so important. It's got to get out there. I'm like, okay, I'm putting it back out in the print, hopefully in about a week.
Yeah.
So The
All
Secret
right.
War
Cool.
will be back out.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'll have to look out for it. So another question for you. So
It
the
is an
shadow.
ebook now, just so you know. It still is.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I
Mhm.
guess is it an audible? Do you know?
I'm sorry.
Is it an audible on
Uh,
Amazon
it,
Audible?
it might be. It might be.
Yeah, because I've started listening to that. I've got a few books on there, so
Oh,
I'll
okay.
have a look for it after and see. If not, I'll just wait a couple of weeks and buy a copy.
Well,
But
cool.
no, I was going to ask you. So
Mm.
these shadow people, how do they, suppose, travel from where they are to where we are?
Um, as far as traveling, I haven't asked the specifics of that. I don't recall ever asking about that with those
Like,
beings. I was told that they've always kind of been an opposing force throughout the universe. This is
right?
not their home. They've imposed on the lives of many beings and all sorts of planets.
Yeah,
We have our understandings when it comes to religion that there's a dark force out there and a light force.
yeah,
God represents one, evil, the devil, Satan on the other side.
yeah.
And I think, tomato, tomato, you
Oh
give these
yeah,
different titles, but it's the same thing when you close your eyes. It feels dark. Okay. I put them in that category. Dark over here, light over there.
yeah,
Um, but what's interesting to know, the beings that I had a lot of interaction with, positive alien like beings that told me that they've been called a lot of things throughout history. I'm like, angels? They're like, sometimes,
yeah,
sometimes this, sometimes that. And they don't look like the grays, they don't look like the reptilians. They're just a different kind of being that doesn't take too kindly to the negative influences that are being put here by dark beings like the shadow and the
yeah.
Hatman beings. So it's I forgot what I was going to tell you in regards to that, but
It's
but
all
yeah,
right.
but there's two sides to this thing. But this is, you know, the battle of all battles. This is the war of all wars. We
Yeah,
thought we'd see the battle, as a big display. The Armageddon, the
yeah,
apocalypse, and the battle's going on in the privacy of people's homes, and
yeah,
they're struggling. They're just fought for their lives after having their souls ripped from their bodies, and they wake up in bed next to their spouse, and they're thought to be nuts.
yeah,
What's that saying? The greatest trick the devil ever did was convince people he wasn't real. Man, these things are placing their bets on us that we don't figure them out.
yeah. No, I agree with you. But so is there any way to? So I'm just trying to think. I suppose stop him from coming, or
Yes.
is there not? Does he just turn up
No, there's a way to get rid of him.
regardless?
Oh, there's a way to get rid of him for sure. That is part of, that's a bigger part of the story. It's like I'm hearing such horrific things of people. I've always been asked by people, how can I conjure these things? Oh, come on. I would never tell you how to do that. And I would never look into how to do that. I think it's
No.
quite easy to call in negative into your life in any fashion. But it's a lot harder to get rid of it and to walk a narrow path, right? It's like to be positive.
Yeah.
But to get rid of them, it's not about trying to figure out always why he's there, why Hatman is there, why shadow people are there, because there could be a whole slew of reasons behind that. And that's a big part of what I do is trying to, people, it helps to know, to follow the patterns of things. But in the bigger picture, you just kind of like your soul being in your body, right? so
Yeah.
so just to drop that and be like, let's move on. We got rid of that thing. Hatman, shadow people, they look for a crack. They look for a way in. They observe you. That's just why people will think, oh, it's just a guardian. How sweet. I feel so protected. Oh, he's there staring. I'm like, well, I'm sure there's a lot of strangers that love to come stare at you while you're sleeping or taking a shower, but I don't think that's sounds like a perv to me. And he is. He is. So he's trying to find a way in. I don't care if it takes a week or 20 years. He'll take his time. He's got time. So he's waiting for your weakest moment and looking for that chance. But to keep him out of your space is the key. And one of those ways, it's not unless you're, come from an indigenous culture where you believe in sage, like that's part of your core beliefs.
Yeah.
I don't know it to work. And people say, oh, I felt better after I saged. Well, I don't see that's not going to hold. Are you, Native American? Are you, I find it works better for that, but not bigger picture. Something pure like water, spring water. Go down to the river, go down to the lake, or get it out of a bottle. Doesn't matter. And use that to bless your space. And that's what I have. That's what this book was. Because I kept having people asking they couldn't understand the visual of blessing their space and how to do it.
Okay.
So I did it that way. But I have it described in the Secret War book and the Hatman book as well to go through your home and bless it. It's not about calling somebody to do it for you either. I've had many people like, the priest came through and it didn't help. It just ticked it off. I'm like, yeah, because you're standing behind his faith, not your own.
Yeah. I was going to say, because you're using somebody else's energy, not your own.
Yeah.
And if he's in your space, then it's connected to you. So you need to be the one to get rid.
You do. You have to stand your ground. Put your ethereal foot up their backside. Well, I wouldn't be confrontational, but put your ethereal foot down and stand your ground. Blessing your space, yourself. If you have somebody come in to bless your space, do it with them. Do it with them. People that live there. And I've had people say, well, but I live in a house, nobody else believes in this but myself, and and it's coming at me, nobody else. I'm like, well, bless your bedroom. As long as you can have that peace, and that's it. It's like having that peace, having that space so you can sleep at night, because he's trying to wear you down. He's in your dreams. Imagine that, having a nightmare and you wake up and it's in your bedroom. This is what Hatman does.
Wow.
That's what shadow people do as well. So looking, observing, like, oh, they're afraid of this. Oh, they don't like that. Oh, porcupines give them the scares. Oh, okay. They're taking note. And he's not docile. He's not innocent because he's strolling through your living room. No. If you saw him, there's something going on. So
I'm guessing that, like, if he turns up, that he's wanting to take your soul.
Oh, that's his ultimate goal. Yeah. He is. He's a bit hungry for that little tasty snack called your soul. unfortunately. Yeah, it's horrendous. It's absolutely horrendous, and it sounds so cliche and silly. It's like the devil
No, I
wants
know
your
what you
soul.
mean, though.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's like, oh, sure they do. It's like, yeah. And then science had to try to explain away. When I started putting word out there about this, it wasn't just coast to coast AM. Was a broke college kid. When I graduated college, I didn't go practice as a therapist. I knew what I was supposed to be doing and putting word out there with my little self-published book, The Secret War.
yeah,
And I'd pack my friends in a van and we'd hit a conference. I paid my way there. I
yeah,
wasn't invited to speak. I would sell my self-published book, and when it was open mic time on the stage,
yeah,
you could speak for 15 minutes, I would take that time to speak to the people about what was coming and what was happening. And
right,
you know, it's been really difficult to do that, and then people to distort it as it is and like, "I'm gonna make this into a smash hit film." A
yeah,
what? You know, it's like,
yeah,
how about give a sister a call and say what's that? It's like,
yeah,
it's so odd. So, yeah, it's been a weird time. And,
yeah,
I'm trying to do my best to make sure that people don't fall into this, this is entertainment to be scared. I think if anything, it should be educational.
yeah,
Um, you know,
yeah,
because learning this stuff that as I did in regards to the whole topic, it was something I never expected uh,
yeah,
to get some of the info that I did, but also there's another big element to it. And again, we're like scattered all over the place with the story, so it doesn't make as much sense because we're like ding, 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 we're at the end going backwards. But
yeah,
I remember before I was born. And
right,
it just seems like out of space right now to discuss, but remembering that not I didn't have hypnosis or anything like that.
right,
It is remembered, and that this was something I was supposed to be doing and working on and having it done in a certain manner, so to speak.
right, yeah. So, did your parents have any experiences or encounters that you know of?
Oh, not with those things in particular.
Right, but they did with other stuff.
Yes, they did. My mother passed when I was quite young. So I was
Sorry.
7 years old. I appreciate it. And so I don't know her to have experienced anything, but
Right.
my dad and stepmother, yes.
Yeah.
Um, I could tell you the very first, I guess I was built for this stuff. Little did I know pretty young
Yeah.
with the very first experience that we had in that home. It was the first year that my mother. It was the first Christmas my mother was no
Right.
longer with us,
Yeah.
and so I'm 7 years old. My sister is 5. I had a sister that was 9 or 10 at the time, and
Yeah.
a future stepbrother was there. And it's Christmas Day. My
Yeah.
dad and my future stepmom said, "We're going to go wish other people a Merry Christmas. We'll be right back." And my siblings and I, we had just got done opening up all of our Christmas presents. And, we're just like, we don't care where you go. We're having a good old time with all of our gifts. And
Yeah.
my future stepmother had just moved in her organ. And as we're playing with our toys, the organ starts pounding away.
Oh,
Ba, 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 it's going crazy. And my sisters and I, we loved old Western movies with
yeah.
automatic playing pianos.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we're like, we crowded around and we go to my stepbrother. We're like, what? How does it do this? This is amazing, And we look at him. He's like, redhead, freckled kid. And he's like, he turned so white. He's like, it doesn't do that. And I remember so clearly that moment of, my 7-year-old mind going, oh, like the Scooby-Doo. And we just ran into the one room in the house that had a lock, which was a bathroom.
Right.
And locked ourselves in there, and this thing kept pounding. It kept playing. It was crazy.
So
And
was it? Was it playing a tune or was it just
it hit every
random
low
keys?
note. Every low note. Bah, 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 bah. You know, it's just crazy.
Yeah.
Just crazy. And we're just dying. We're just dying. We're like, it won't stop.
Oh, so
But it got worse.
how long did it go on for?
Well, we were in there for some time. I mean, you know, for kids, it seems like forever. We're in there maybe 20 minutes.
Wow,
And
it's quite a while.
my sister goes, I had an older sister that liked to bully. And we're all crowded into this little bathroom. And she literally said, well, it's too crowded in here, so somebody's got to get out. And that was me. So she shoved me out. And I'm like, no, not me, you know, and I'm like, I'm 7. I slid my back down the front of the door and I sat there and put my face in my knees and I'm like crying my eyes out. I'm like, because it's right in front of me, the organ.
Yeah.
And then I couldn't take it anymore. I don't know how long I sat there and I'm like, I'm going to do something about this. And I knew there was a lock, a key for the lock. And it was in my dad's bedroom. And I was like, okay. And I found it.
Yeah.
And I'm telling my siblings as I'm going to go get it, I'm like, I'm going to get the key. And I hear them whispering behind there, oh, she's going to do something. I'm like, and I go and reach across this organ while it's playing. And it had the little case that pulls down. And I mean, it's just crazy watching the keys go by themselves. And then I put the cover on and I locked it. And when I locked it, it stopped.
Right.
And I was like, you can come out now, you chickens. I took care of it, you know, and I put the key up and they're creeping out and they're like, whoa, you really did that? I'm like, yeah, you know, like I couldn't take it anymore. And then as they're like creeping out of the bathroom and there's like mounds of wrapping paper everywhere.
Yeah.
And we started hearing another sound and it was doing kind of the same pattern of going mental. And my siblings scream, I'll run back in and lock the door. I'm like, no, you know? And I'm like, I had to find the sound. And it was somewhere on the ground underneath all of this wrapping paper. So I'm flipping the wrapping paper up. And I'm like, I'm going to find what it is, you know? And I pulled up this keyboard, it was like a little electronic, like guitar thing.
All right, yeah.
And I said, you know, it's my baby sister's new toy, you know, I'm going to take the batteries out, you know, and I flipped it over to take the batteries out.
Yeah. No batteries.
No batteries. Nope. No batteries. And I couldn't even get the words out. I remember like, there's no battery. You know, and I kept like kind of repeating it and I put my back up against the bathroom door where they were all in and just slid down and planted my face on my knees again because there was nothing I could do about it. There's nothing I could do about it. And it kept going until my dad came back. So this could have been over 2 hours of this crap. Yeah, it was terrible.
I think I'd have put the organ outside the bathroom door and legged it out of the house. Let them deal with it.
Yeah, right. I was so petrified. It was horrible.
Yeah,
that was my first you know, confrontation with
so did you see anything at the time?
That time we did not.
No.
Later we did discover that there was a image of something at that Christmas in a photo. And it seemed to be my mom in the image, but I'm not sure. You know, every year people take a picture around the Christmas tree, you know, the family. So we did that. Well, mom didn't miss it. So she was in the photo, but she was on the outside of the window looking in. And I don't believe what, you know, everybody thought, oh, your mother's haunting the house because your dad's moving on. What mother do you know would terrify her very young children?
Oh, yeah.
Come on now.
That'd be the last thing that there's going to do.
Mama Bear, heck no. No, that would not happen. So I realized after an attack that happened on my stepbrother what it was.
Yeah.
And I think the protective love of a mother can't be matched. So when she left, this dark stuff moved in, and it never really left me.
Right.
I mean, it just and my sisters, they had things going on their whole lives as well, and they don't talk about it like I do, though.
Right.
Poor
So
thing.
can you tell us what it is that what you discovered that it was? Sorry.
Yeah. So, my sister and my stepbrother, they were older, and I want to say my stepbrother was probably 12 years old or something,
Hmm.
and old enough to be in the house by themselves.
Yeah.
And we would get odd poundings in the house, right? And so many odd things, and
Yeah.
lights that would be on that shouldn't be on, and just didn't know what was going on with all of that. And one day it was my stepbrother and my sister were at the house by themselves, and the pounding started, and they were trying to race through to try to find a secure spot, and they locked themselves in the second floor bathroom. The bathroom is a safe place because it's got that lock, And
Yeah.
so they're both in there, and I don't know how long they were in there for.
Yeah.
And my sister says, yeah, and then he tried to be all macho, my stepbrother, like, he
Yeah.
was sick of it being locked up in the bathroom like a little girl. And so he like bursts out the door and is like, I'm done. He's like, if you want a piece of me, come and get a piece of me. Oh, that was the wrong thing.
The worst thing to say ever.
It was, yeah, this is horror movie stuff. Like, yeah, those are your famous last words. Um, something black flew into his face with glowing red eyes and scratched his face all up, like cat scratches.
Yeah.
Yeah. And my sister said, I didn't know he could scream so high. It was the high scream
All right.
pitch running back. He had just stepped outside the door. He didn't even get far and screamed
Yeah.
that. And yeah. So and my dad was it's probably a bat loose in the house. So he
Yeah.
crawled
All right.
through all of the crawl spaces in the house, the
Yeah.
basement, everything. And there was nothing to account for it.
Yeah. Looking for some nest or something.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It was insane. It's like, you know what? I didn't hello, that's shadow people,
Yeah.
the glowing red eyes, that's like a key, but I didn't know it then,
Yeah.
and a black mass of some sort. It's just so telling. So I'm like, wow. They started then and never let up. Never let up. And I just I didn't know. I didn't know. And
No.
there's a whole other side to my story that it's been a really strange last couple of years for the entire world. For
Yeah.
me, it became a whole new level of understandings that I never thought I would have come to understand right now, actually. I mean, it's so nuts. And it beats everything that I've ever covered. To name the modern day devil in the world was woo, making my parents proud, right? Uh, so, and then his minions, yay! Yeah. But this next bit is really, it's been quite a haul. So I'm
Yeah.
finishing up a new book right now,
Okay.
and it's kind of, you know, there's a part that how do you deal with something so evil, so dark, and be okay and not be possessed, how do you I'm not a pastor, I'm not a preacher, but I guess it's funny, people are like, but you're doing a ministry, Heidi. I'm like, oh, I don't, that scares people away.
Yeah.
It's like, but I'm just speaking my truth of what I know. Not being shy. I think, I got some backbone in growing up in
Yeah.
a haunted house and having siblings that, therapeutically we spoke to each other about this stuff because
Yeah.
that's how we survived. It A
Oh,
horror
yeah.
movie. A movie wasn't a movie unless it was a horror movie because it was therapeutic for us.
Yeah.
So
So do you think it started because of the house or because of you guys?
you mean the phenomenon?
Yeah.
That's I don't think so now. I used to wonder why,
Yeah.
right now I don't, um, because of some things that I'm not quite equipped to speak on just yet. But
Okay.
just you can't even imagine. You can't even imagine.
Well,
I have I have had quite the journey, and you know, there's been a couple of conversations on it here and there, but I just it's just been too much.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's just like I'm trying to find the right balance right now with
Yeah.
revealing some of these things, and it's very personal, and then not. It's very global and very personal at the same time.
Yeah.
It's so odd. So I hope within the next several months I will be able to speak more freely on it. But
Yeah.
as unbelievable as it was, I'm talking about something I called shadow people, or I called Hatman. I'd get giggles sometimes at these conferences that I would talk about these things. You're talking
Yeah.
about a whole new genre I brought up. Nobody either like
Well,
that's sci-fi, that's what I would hear. That's science fiction. What is this lady? Oh no, I didn't get called a lady. I got called that girl talking about. That's what I
really?
would get. Who's that girl talking? I'm like, but I still did what I knew to be
Yeah.
true. And now that girl is disregarded, like, oh
Yeah.
yeah. So anyways, this is my subject and I know what I'm talking about. That's what I get.
Yeah.
I get a lot of people contacting me telling me what shadow people are in Hatman. I'm like, do you know who you reached out to?
Yeah.
It's like I really do my best not to have ego in this because this is the paranormal, for crying out
Yeah.
loud.
Yeah.
How, people that get ego in this, it's kind of ridiculous. But after so much time of, I put over 2 decades. I wrote my book in 1997, you
Right.
know, and I've been doing this a very long time. I look like a kid, but I'm not. And
Yeah.
it's like, have a little decency, please, and a little
Yeah.
nod, like, got it from you. Thank you, Heidi.
Yeah. The
Yeah,
acknowledgement.
it's been hard. It's been hard. And women are not that prominent in this field. And people of my ethnic background, oh
Yeah.
no, only one. And still it's like it just try to push and shove you over, and I don't get it. Um, you know, it's like just say thanks. So glad you did all you did. I'm
Yeah.
not making millions. I have my day job, you know.
Yeah.
People are like, "Oh, but you should be." No, this is not the business you go into to make good money.
No, it would be nice, but it
Yeah, it's
doesn't happen.
passion, and it's also
Yeah.
I again, I'm back to I know what I'm here to be working on, and I've been doing that, and I have no regrets in doing what I'm doing. It's so needed, and I am happy to say that I know thousands of people, well, millions have heard me talk, but I know
Yeah.
thousands have been spiritually saved. I'm Christian.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be shy about saying Christian. People say it like it's a bad word or something
Yeah.
anymore. Um, but that's one of the points I meant to tell you. In the face of aliens,
Yeah.
shadow people, Hatman, this common thread, they hate the name of Jesus. Isn't that interesting?
Right.
Why do they
Yeah.
hate that? I mean, the abducting aliens, the rotten ones. Why do they
Yeah.
hate that name? Why do they leave? You know? And then you see Hatman and shadow people right next to the aliens, or, you just
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
happen to be a person that experiences all of it. So you've got to, realize that this is really a spiritual battle.
Yeah.
And, people try to put Jesus on a UFO flying around or whatever. I don't need to do that to be comfortable to say, I know he's real.
Yeah.
Um, I know that I've had, oh boy, you have no idea, Andy. I was such a skeptic of people who claim to see Jesus everywhere. Oh, I was such a
Yeah.
skeptic. I, in fact,
Right.
trashed the subject in my first book, The Secret War.
Ah.
And you know, "Ooh, he's in my bowl of soup." Oh, sure he is. You know, I had seen so much and dealt with so much and remembered so much. I literally wrote in that book, if Jesus were around, I think I would have seen him by now. I mean,
Yeah.
that's how now you talk about ego. That was kind of egotistical, and I had to eat those words because I was about, you know, I wrote the book in 97.
Yeah.
I'd at that time, it took me 2 months to write that book while I was in
Oh, right.
college. 2 months. Yeah, I was that
Yeah.
passionate about, oh my goodness, you
Yeah.
guys
Yeah.
have no idea what's coming. And I wrote it in 2 months, and I sent this book out to you know, people who publish these types of books. At
Yeah.
that stage, the only people who publish books like that were other authors in the field. Okay.
Ah, right.
So imagine I have sent my book all over the country. And
Yeah.
these people in the paranormal, guess where they would hang out? They would hang out sometimes at Art Bell's house. They were friends,
Right.
you
Yeah.
know? And, so people are like, "Oh, Heidi, somebody spoke about shadow people before you did." I'm like, "I probably sent them my book." It's just, you know?
Yeah.
So, but the copyright speaks for itself. But anyways, it took me 4 years to get it published. I'm sitting there looking around trying to get it published.
Yeah.
And in that time, I'm editing, I'm fixing, I'm like, "Ah, I can't find a publisher, I'm busy in college." Um, and I trashed Jesus in the book. And, I had my faith, but I just thought he was a historical figure who did his
Yeah.
thing and will come back someday, you know, to help us out. You know, and you just have to say your prayers in his name. That's how I treated,
Yeah.
the subject. Um, little did and I took great pride picking on my friends who went to church on Sundays. You know, just
Right.
because they thought, "Oh, you're into that alien stuff, you must be a devil worshiper." So I'd tell them, "Oh, yeah, I'll probably set on fire if I stepped in a church." You know, I would
Yeah.
just, you know, harass them, you know, I'm like, "Whatever." But I was joking. They knew I had faith,
Yeah.
you know, just I wasn't a Bible thumper and I still am not. But I went and in all of this midst of all of this, I had a Jesus encounter.
Oh.
I
I
just,
wasn't expecting that.
dude, I had to eat my words and
Yeah.
correct my trashing Jesus in that book, and I explained why, and,
Yeah.
there is no way, as skeptical as I was, that anything else could have changed my perspective at that time, because, I mean, I was having a lot of things going on. I saw angelic beings. I
Yeah.
saw, you know, white robes. I have so many memories of going back and forth to this place that since I was a little kid, I would call it the Crystal City. Um, it looked like ancient Greek buildings, and again, I know sounds like all scattered all over the place because we started off at the
In
end,
the end,
but
sorry about
it's
that.
just so weird because it's like people want to get to the good stuff. Devil, okay, we're at the devil,
Yeah.
but it's like I just I had a lot of experiences that got me to that point,
Yeah.
and then I had that, and I mean, it shook my foundation. It shook up
Yeah.
everything, and all I could understand to say to people was, Jesus is no joke. That man is real. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness, you know, and my friends are like, "Whoa, something's happened to Heidi because she loves picking on that topic," you know.
Yeah.
But so I wrote a book called Jesus is No Joke, the red and white
Yeah.
one.
Yeah. Yeah. I was
Be-
going
Yeah,
through the thing before.
yeah,
Yeah.
because I just had to be honest, and thank God I did because I'm up against some dark forces.
Yeah.
And it's the only way that I know that's ever helped me to be okay in this field that is so dark and heavy. Um, you know, when I suggest people don't dive into these things, I say it
Yeah.
for good reason
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many people have been attacked, made sick with brain cancer and crazy stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
hospitalized in the mental institution, or killed or haunted. So I give a warning to people, don't, for good reasons.
Yeah. No, because I was going to ask you about the book, the Jesus book, how that relates to like the Shadow People and the Hatman books.
Yeah.
That was one of the questions that I had for you.
Oh, thank God. So everybody, I have to give it to you, Andy, because people, they want to linger in the dark a lot, and I'm like, I don't know how I can do that without sprinkling in some Jesus, because that saved me literally, so much.
Yeah.
But how that came about, again, I painted the background of being a skeptic of, oh, he's in a tree trunk. Oh, he's in a piece of toast. Let me put that online and have people come worship it.
Yeah.
I was so done. And here I was, a very honest person about what it is I experience. I'm like, I think I just saw an angel. Oh boy, and
Yeah.
I thought, my honest belief was like when people say he appeared, Jesus appeared or something. I'm like, obviously that they mistook an angel, because I could see that. They have the white robes with the shoulder length hair. But when I saw him, then I'll tell you, Andy, this is the first encounter I had with him, because I've had more.
Oh.
Yeah. So first one I had, I was in college. I came home from work. I would work at 5 a.m. till 12.
Yeah.
And at 12 noon, and I would take a nap and go to my class.
All right.
So I did that. I came home. I told my roommate, "You turn down your TV. I'm going to take a nap." Okay. And I laid down. Oh, it's not even. I didn't even get to lay down. I went into my bedroom. You straighten up your pillows.
Yeah,
And your
you do all
blanket.
the faffing about and
You do,
everything. Yeah.
So, I mean, I sat at the edge, and I went to go lay down, and
Yeah.
I hit the floor, Andy.
Oh.
I
How?
hit the floor, and I was like, how did I do that? Like, I don't think I even got to the edge of the bed. I just went boom. I'm like, ooh, man, I must be really exhausted. And
Yeah.
I'm getting up off the ground, and I'm looking around, and I wasn't in my bedroom. And I'm like, okay, hold on.
There's
Oh,
something not right here.
yeah, I get chills right now even talking about it. And I was on my parents' front porch. And
Right.
I'm trying to think in my head, how did I manage to get over here? And I'm thinking, I was supposed to meet up with a family friend named Quincy, and at my parents' home. And I'm like, yeah, Heidi, you were planning to do that. That's what's happening. You just don't remember how you got here. So I could have sworn I was taking a nap. I'm like,
Yeah.
what happened? And I'm looking around, and my parents live out in the country, and they have a pretty long driveway, and I see this man walking up the driveway.
Yeah.
And I'm looking, I'm like, oh yeah, that's Quincy coming. And he barely gets close when I realize, oh man, I know who this is. And I'm kind of a silly person, and I just started palming my face, with both hands. I was like, oh man, what is happening here? And I have my face down like that
All right.
when he comes like in front of me, and I won't look. I will not look. And I'm just like, and he says, hello, like he's going to talk about the weather or something. And I'm like, hello, I said hello.
Pretending
like
you're not there.
Right. And he said, do you know who I am? If you knew who I was, you would not hesitate to say it. And I'm like, oh, he's calling my bluff, like I have to speak. And I'm pulling my hands away, and I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. And I'm stuttering because I am blown away. And I said, you're Jesus. I don't speak a lick of English. Spanish. I don't speak a lick of Spanish. And I'd have called him Jesus. And when I pulled my hands away, and he said, yes, I am. And when I looked at him, he had rose off the ground. And I saw like a full gown that was kind of off-white. and
Yeah.
I saw shoulder length hair, but there was like this bright light coming from behind his head that was so bright it shadowed his face.
Right.
And oh, I get goosebumps. And he started talking about his life,
Yeah.
about how so much needed to be done. And he's talking, and Andy, I am myself going, oh man, in my head, I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm like,
What's happening?
and I'm hitting my leg. I'm like, you are here, Heidi. You are
Yeah,
here.
yeah, yeah.
I'm looking
Just
around. I'm
checking
hitting
it's all
things.
real.
Dude, I'm pinching myself. I'm scratching. I'm like, I am really here. And then I touched the ground, Andy, and that's when I realized something. I'm hitting the ground, the cement
Yeah.
pavement in front of my parents' house, and that's when I realized, oh, I'm on my knees. I don't even remember falling to my knees.
Right.
And so I'm touching the ground, looking down, not paying attention, and he got quiet. And I felt like a kid that got caught not paying attention in class. And I
Yeah.
was like, I looked up at him, I was like,
Wait.
yeah, I was like, and I'm stuttering. And I said,
Yeah.
what do you want me to do? You know? And and he like kind of helped me stand up,
Yeah.
and he said, first you need to show us some things. And he said, us. I'm looking around.
Looking
I
for
said,
the others.
oh, he's talking about his dad, And I mean,
Yeah.
I was just about as silly as you can imagine. I'm like, oh, he's talking about his dad. I'm like, okay, and he's like, you need to finish writing your book. That's the Secret War book. It was
Right.
done, but I was tweaking things here and there.
Yeah.
He said, do not worry what other people say. Know that I'll be there to give you the words. And I was like, oh, okay. So, I'm like, oh, I trashed you in that book. you know, at that time,
yeah.
it was, I gave doubt to people that thought he was around,
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, that book,
Yeah.
it's the only one I was
Did you
doing.
not say there's a bit that you need to rewrite?
Yeah, that right after that, I did. Oh, I felt so bad. You need to finish writing your book. I'm like, it is. Oh
Yeah.
no, I got to
Oh, no,
rewrite.
there's a bit that I need to change.
Dude, I had to rewrite quite a bit.
Yeah.
And then he started to tell me something, and it was so interesting because okay, so his face is shadowed, right?
Yeah.
But then I could see his mouth. I could see his lips are moving. He's
Right.
talking. I'm close, but I don't hear anything. It was as if there was a glass between us where
Right.
I know I'm not supposed to hear this part, but I'll be able to retrieve it when I need it.
Yeah.
And he's talking, and then I'm like, and then I could hear him again, right? He's quiet, and then I could hear him again. And I'm like, think of something to ask him, Heidi. Ask him anything,
Yeah.
because I know he's about to leave. And I'm like, well, what's my real name? What a
Yeah.
weird question. I asked him what my real name is. And he started laughing at me, Andy.
Oh.
He started laughing, and he said, I love you very much, Ilea. And man, I mean, that was it's just so powerful. Little did I know, so much. I didn't know what that meant,
Yeah.
And I started coming back to my bedroom when
Right.
he said that. He walked into this wall of my parents' home in the front porch like area, and I'm thinking, I want to remember this name, Ilea. I'm thinking over and over, and I'm coming back, and I got to tell you, oh, I get goosebumps. He, a lot of people have asked me, how'd you know that was him? Blah, 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 blah. And I tell people, I could have been blind and seen it was him, because
Yeah.
every cell of my body screamed, it's Jesus.
Yeah.
Every cell. I'm like, it was just wild. So I get back into my body,
Yeah.
and this love thing that he has is so ridiculous. there are just no words. The way it just elevates you. It's all over. It's like a tickling love. It encompasses you. So I get back into my body, and I hadn't hit the floor, Andy. I was in the
Oh,
bed. I
oh,
don't know how. I was in the bed, but I didn't want to move because the love was on
the
me
feeling
so
that you was
thick.
having at the time.
It was. It was so thick, and I just didn't want to let it go. So I just took it all in,
Yeah,
and then something else happened I could go into if you want. But
yeah,
it was powerful. It was powerful. And it just was I was so just there's no way that I could replicate that. It was him, and he was so real, and
yeah.
I had to rewrite that book. I was like, "Ooh,
Yeah,
sorry,
stood
what?"
over you watching. Change
Yeah.
that bit. Change that bit.
Ooh, man, I felt terrible. I was like,
Yeah,
"Oh, what do you mean it is done? Oh."
yeah. He's
Yeah.
one little bit.
And
Yeah,
people are like, "Well, why you? Why did he come to you?" I'm like, "Maybe he saw I was a decent person that was about to make a terrible mistake and lead a lot of people in the wrong way."
yeah, it could have
So,
been.
here's this lady writing this book, and she trashes Jesus being real
That girl.
in the world today. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Right. Well, should we go for a break then, and you can tell us the rest of that after the
Sure.
break? Is
Let's
that
do it.
okay?
That sounds great.
Perfect. Right. We'll be back in 5 minutes. Okay. See you all then.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
And we are back. So thanks for staying and watching the break video, if that's what you do. Don't know. But anyway, so yeah. Right, so should we carry on? Do you want to continue with what you was telling us about what happened next?
Oh, yeah, that was something else.
Please?
Well, I'd had the encounter that I just mentioned the first time that I had the Jesus encounter.
Yeah.
And I'm laying there. I didn't want to move because I was just like the love tickles were just I just it's hard to describe. And
Yeah.
and then I thought, okay, when I'm ready, I'm gonna reach for the wall and knock on it for my college roommate to come in. And but then I realized my ability to move was being robbed.
Oh.
I couldn't move my arms. I couldn't move anything. And all of a sudden it sounds so strange, but I was just like pulled and sucked back into this odd scenario where I didn't know quite where I was. And
Right.
I mean, and it's not like I am just again, I don't call myself a psychic or anything like that. I've had a lot of weird things happen, but this
Yeah.
takes the cake. And
Yeah.
so I get put inside of my parents' home, but it's all distorted. And I'm like, come on now. But I feel this horrible feeling around me. And I'm like, what on earth? And this gives me chills. This thing came up over my shoulder
Yeah.
on my left side, and it had this snake-like drawn out voice. And it scared me because I didn't expect something over my shoulder. And it goes, "Are you sure of what you saw?" And I was like, "What?"
Oh.
It's like I looked and I saw this thing that had it had like a meat face of a family member hanging off from
Oh.
its body, and a solid black skin and black eyes, and just crotchety looking body. It was just gross. And I said, "What?" And it repeated if I was sure what I saw. And I was like, "Oh, whoa." Yeah, I said, I don't know what this is. I said, but I know what I saw. And they said, and then it asked, are you sure it wasn't Quincy that you saw? And it's drawing its words out. And I'm like, it was so odd. And I'm like, I know what I just saw. And it stretched its hand across my face and it pointed to my right and it said, there goes Quincy now,
Yeah.
And here I see this family friend walk across the room and stop. And I'm like, what? And it said, there goes another one, and I saw another replica of the friend walk across the room and stop 3 times. And I said, look, I don't know what this is. I said, but I know what I saw. And it was, and I started to say, Jesus.
Yeah.
And I heard this sound that sounded like 1,000 panes of glass crashing together all of a sudden. And I turned, and the thing that was leaning over my shoulder had stepped back. And I saw this, the best way, it just looked like some kind of hideous creature I've never seen before. It was so fast. And it had a wavy knife and it had pulled it back and it, was right above me. It was about to stab me.
Yeah.
And like he just broke through this image, I don't know, of the wall. And I was like, whoa, and I just said, Jesus, real quick.
Yeah.
And I felt like this hand come and pull me up and out of that situation. And boom, I'm back in the bed. And I said, I was so quick to wail on the wall, pounding like a crazy person before anything else happened. My friend comes running in, what? And I was like, okay, hold on. It's like, I swear I just laid down and hit the floor,
Yeah.
And it was just so much. And I calmed myself,
Yeah.
And I didn't want to give too much attention to the negative thing that had just happened. And told her about the Jesus encounter, and then I told her, what followed up. And
yeah,
I'd not looked into people claiming to have seen Jesus, but when I had to correct that book, right? And I was hitting these conferences and talking with my little 15 minutes of free mic time, I was approached by a lot of people who were like, the pattern of is like, I know you saw Jesus now because the pattern of them is to be followed up with something like that to question what you just experienced.
Yes.
I didn't know that. I had no idea. All I know is it was meaning business. And that wavy knife, it was the blade was wavy.
Yeah.
I looked it up at one point and it's like some kind of thing used in demonic satanic rituals.
Oh.
Little did I know.
Oh.
Oh. Strange. But
Right.
but yeah, so that was the first time I'd seen him and had to correct that book. and I would get asked the question a lot from people. It's like, okay, so your book's about aliens. It goes into shadow people. Jesus, where'd that come from? And I'm like, I had to be honest, I had to be honest. And then I had to, I felt, he came more than once, several times. And so I just documented, those stories. And believe it or not, that book, it has the highest ratings of any of my books that I've ever done.
Oh.
And it's funny because I'm known as the person that introduced the modern devil to the world and shadow people and Hatman.
Yeah.
But, I have 8 books out there. I have 3 on these dark topics. The rest are on the angel encounters that showed me how they pray. Jesus encounters, it's like faith-based. I have the other F word here, how to find faith and laugh at yourself while trying, because I'm a cartoonist. And one of the main things people would write me about, I just saw the devil, but I don't get into that religion thing. What do I do? Oh, throw a shoe at it then. You just gave credit to the devil, but you're afraid to say Jesus or you're Christian.
Yeah.
It's so ridiculous. I'm like, no wonder it came. And I don't want to say like, oh, you conjured it, but they look for faithless people
Yeah.
to attack oftentimes. It's not usually why though. But it's people need to be made aware that that these things are scoping them out. But yeah, it's important to know there's a balance out there in the universe. Even aliens know there's a positive force and a dark force. It's
Yeah.
okay to call it God, to call it, Jesus, to call, it's
Yeah.
I'm Christian and biased, so those are the two I stay with.
No, fair enough. So when you said you had like more than one encounter with him, was it the same farm each time that you seen him?
Pretty much, yes. And it's so strange because one time I saw him and I didn't make out his face at
Right.
all, except for his eyes. And
Right.
his eyes I knew they weren't what they were here in his lifetime, but because they glowed a blue like the sky.
Yeah.
Um, just beautiful, but and so endearing, but very similar with this off-white like gown
Yeah.
and the shoulder length hair. Um, but to say to draw him out, I wouldn't. I don't think I could do something like that. But again, you could be blind and see him.
Yeah.
The one time he came and I didn't see him physically, but I absolutely felt him and
Yeah.
saw a light of his that came and filled my room. I was
Right.
sleeping and I'm like, who turned the light on? And I'm
Oh,
looking around, I'm like, whoa. And then the love hit me.
yeah.
And yeah, so that was probably the only time he didn't show up physically like that. But
Yeah. Yeah.
I could tell you it's been quite a ride. And all I could do is be painfully honest about the realities of what it is I've
Yeah.
experienced and let people judge for themselves. It's like I'm not here to cram anything down anybody's throat, but
No.
to give the warning he asked me to give.
Yeah. The thing is, you know what you're seeing.
Hmm.
You was there, so that's all that matters.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's the main thing that matters, I should say.
Well, I'm
But
glad that you're open. So a lot of people are not, unfortunately, and I got wise to that with all these shows that would ask me to come on and
yeah.
oh, let's talk about the devil and the demons. Oh, okay, but I just put out a book on Jesus. So first hour is Jesus, and then we'll go into the demons. Oh, they'd get
Yeah.
so mad. Okay, fine. Because I don't know how to help people dealing with that dark stuff and to be okay in sprinkling some of the light on it. It
Yeah.
was always people struggling with, they felt like they have to be perfect in their faith. And I'm like, hold on. God knew he made a mess when he made us, It's like,
Yeah.
I don't get anything right, I don't get anything right. Oh, but your faith has to be perfect. Oh, we fall down, we get back up.
Yeah.
It's like, and so that's why I did actually it's I have two books on the topic because I
Right.
did a kid's book. It's that one right there. Um,
All right. Yeah.
and it was, it's kind of like Diary of a Wimpy Kid. I did
Yeah.
it for kids. Why are you going to church? Blah blah blah. Um, and just made it fun. And I didn't hear from one kid. I heard from all these adults. This is awesome. I'm like, oh my goodness. So I
Yeah.
did an adult version of it, and that's the other F word.
Ah. Right.
And it's just like, look, these things are hoping we don't know to call on its opposing force that could knock it out. And it's time to just stop being silly about it. It's not the sit down in a building type of faith I'm talking about. It's the being realistic. There's an opposing force. We call it God. I call
Yeah.
it Jesus and God. And it's like that hurts them. That hurts these negative things. And just stop with the silliness. I'm so like, it's always so similar in these emails I get that Yeah, I don't get into that topic, but I'm gonna give credit to the devil. He
Yeah.
scared me. Ugh. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. We have got some questions for you.
Okay.
If you want to do them, they're going to range. Well, you'll see as I put them up and read them out. So the first one is from Nickname, who you know. She wants to know: can Hatman be mistaken for the MIB, the non-human type?
Yeah, I think so sometimes. I was told, again, this is not my information. It came from these beings that I had contact with that are mentioned in the Secret War book. The Men in Black, there is a connecting factor with shadow people.
Yeah.
They are, it's kind of like, we could become possessed, right?
Yeah.
So can they. So can these non-humans.
Ah,
And so they're being controlled by these beings. So this dark force connects in that fashion. So imagine that we're dealing with possessed alien beings. That's what we're dealing with.
right.
So people are like, well, I saw Greys and the praying mantis came and took a swipe at me, and then the reptilians. Gosh, why are they working together? And it's the shadow people, Hatman phenomenon, that has their little tentacles in all of them. So
Right.
he's building an army, and it's disgusting. And we're sitting here battling if we even know if we have a soul or not. Imagine that. Guess who has the upper hand? We're sitting there. Oh, I don't know. Do we have a creator? I don't
Yeah.
know. Oh, I'm like,
Yeah, but
that
we
man
know
is
he's.
staring at you, huh?
Yeah, I was gonna say, but we know he's there.
Yeah,
Hatman. So
yeah. I mean, it's really, it drives me up a wall, and for a while I was like, it can be hard to get me to do interviews sometimes, because imagine I was doing my own shows 8 a week. 8.
yeah,
It's like, so, and but I spoke on it so much, and these things, and to see it get to be this craze of, ooh, let's seek out these dark things.
yeah,
It's time to straighten that message and warn people, because I've even had film and documentary people, oh gosh, oh, we're gonna go do something on this. Oh, don't you even, it's like,
yeah,
if don't do it. And they got attacked on their sets. Uh, one of them, it's so sad. It's just sad. Um, they're just pretty much disappeared from the public, and they were a public person,
yeah.
and it's bad. And you don't want to put your finger in the eye of the monster in the movie, do you? Well, just keep doing it, because he's
Well,
watching.
yeah,
He's
yeah.
watching.
Well, you know, something bad's gonna happen, don't you?
Hmm.
So,
Yeah.
I've got a quick question. Is there any? Do you think there's any connection between shadow people and poltergeist?
Oh yeah. I honestly, it's like, it sure ain't, your Aunt Susie coming to say, "Hey, how's it going?" Because that's scaring the crap out of you.
Yeah,
People say, "Oh, poltergeist could be the energy of a person." I think so. It's happened to me. I've had a
yeah,
lot of issues with that, actually. Still, um, but then I was found to have something that is just different. Something called synesthesia, and
right.
they called me a machine empath because of the things that would happen around me. And it's not like, a lot of us in these fields have electronic phenomenon. I'm
Yeah,
talking about having them do things for me that they shouldn't be able to do, type of thing. So to help me out, because a sister needs help. but but yeah, as far as the poltergeist, I mean, aliens have been known to move things.
yeah,
Uh, yes, and these more negative alien beings, the ones that do abductions and whatnot,
yeah.
um, they're possessed essentially. They're
Right. Yeah,
working with the same source of things, and that sounds so silly until you see somebody that's been possessed and you watch them levitate off a floor, and you're like, well, I guess there is something to this. Uh, and green vomit doesn't help either, but
well, I guess not.
no, the Exorcist movie has just burns in me. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think poltergeist activity is definitely something that could be linked if it's negative. Um,
Yeah.
if it's something that's around a person, I have my own understandings of what happens around me,
Yeah.
and know that it's not one of those things. Because I always bless my space and make sure that it's clear of these rotten scoundrels. So, but yeah.
Right. No. Thank you.
Mm.
Got another question from nickname again. It says, "Hi Heidi, why do people see these shadow and Hatman? Do you think?"
Again, there's a lot of different reasons. It could be something attached to the person, to the house. Why they're
Yeah.
seeking a certain person. I always say, I've had people that have had one experience with Hatman 40 years
Yeah.
ago, and it's ruined their lives because they know how real he was, and so they're
Yeah.
constantly on the lookout. Oh man, if he ever shows up again. And then I've
Yeah.
had people who've seen him for every night for 40 years. Imagine that. Every night, here he is. And it's like, man, I mean, he is something else. And when he works that hard on a person, I'm like, ooh, who are you? I'm like, that
Yeah.
you must really irritate the heck out of him. I want to know who they
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
because, I'm like, you are something special because he's trying to stomp out your light. So
Yeah.
again, take it as a compliment. I know it's scary. I know it's
Yeah. Yeah.
irritating, but there's a way to get rid of them. Just have faith and you can,
Yeah.
bless your space. And, it's kind of wild because he doesn't want humankind to be fully in the know of what they're capable of.
Right.
I like to give the example that, this is so crazy. When it comes to Hatman, shadow people, and negative alien abducting beings, it's like,
Yeah.
let's wait till they're sleeping, and then we'll paralyze them, and then we'll get them. Like, ooh, big
Yeah.
baddies. It's like,
Yeah.
hold on. What is so threatening about, a woman that's 100 pounds soaking wet at 4'11" that you got to paralyze her? Just grab her and take her. No,
Yeah.
no. There is something about us when we are who we are that scares the heck out of them, and they
Yeah.
are not able to handle us. So you think about the human potential that has them scared. Like, hold it, you walked through my wall. That's
Yeah.
magical to me. Oh, but you've got to hold me down. You brought a gang of people while I'm sleeping? Think
Yeah.
about that. It's so ridiculous. And then, I got word out there on Shadow People Hatman, um, so much that the quote scientific community had to answer to it. Like, millions of people all over the world are acknowledging, I've had sleep paralysis. They use this word now, right?
Yeah.
It's like, I can't move and I'm seeing these things in the room. Well, scientifically speaking, you're not. You are in this state where you think you're awake, but you're actually not. But you think you are, but you're not. So they're doing this little
Yeah.
play on words. And then, like, and you think you see a guy in a suit and a hat. Shut up. Just shut up. It's like, what
Yeah.
a reach. Oh, we're all having a mass hysteria moment. No, they're trying to get you to feel like you're a little nuts for
Yeah.
trusting your own eyeballs. The same ones you use to drive to work every day, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, those
The
ones. The
ones,
same
the
eyeballs?
ones that stop you from getting killed and stuff.
Yeah. Oh, since when do we trust somebody to tell us what we're seeing?
Wow.
I'm
Yeah.
so done.
Exactly.
I'm
Yeah.
so done. I'm like, wow, I guess they had to do something about that. Oh, Heidi's still talking about these things. People are learning about them. Let's tell them they're nuts and they have sleep paralysis and give them sleeping pills so they sleep through the raping and the scratching and attacking of these things. Because they
Yeah.
will rape you, they will beat you. And
Yeah.
when you can't take anymore, this is Hatman's specialty. That's when you're like giving up, just kill me already. Oh, okay. And he punches his fist through your chest and tugs on your soul. Those are just from
Yeah.
the people that survived it that told me. I mean, I'm just like, enough is enough. I don't, I call people who try to explain away the weird
Yeah.
wizards. They are wizards who want you to look at this hand while I'm actually getting the real information. back here
Right.
because they don't want us to know this. Our world is multi-layered. It's mysterious. It's beautiful. And
Yeah.
we paid these people. Imagine this. We're all tending to our flocks, our sheep and our cattle. Then we got
Yeah.
that one smart kid in the family. It's like, hey, I'm gonna send you over there to learn something and then come back and teach us. Instead, they went there and met other eggheads that think they have all the answers. Like, don't tell them. We'll keep the power and the information to ourselves
Yeah.
and just tell them what we want so the flock of sheep will follow us. And that's what we're doing. We're letting them explain the world to us. And where we don't even trust what we're seeing with our eyes, looking up to the sky or looking down at our shoes. And I'm just like, just stop already. We know we have these senses. We're so busy working and trying to pay the bills, we don't pay attention to our world around us. And
No.
it's important. And now things are taking advantage of us when we're in our most vulnerable state.
Yeah.
And they do the same as the abducting aliens, as the shadow people, as the Hatman, paralysis, get you in a position where you think that you have no power, but you even think the name Jesus works.
Yeah.
I've had people, this is amazing. This one lady told me she couldn't move, but she could make the sign of the cross on the roof of her mouth with her tongue. And they left. I was like,
Right.
whoa. It's that light. And you just call on it. You just have
Yeah.
to. You have to. So
Yeah. So is there more than one Hatman? Is there multiple?
yeah. In the beginning, no. In the
Oh.
beginning, there was not. There was one. There was one. And that's the disturbing pattern here, Andy, because he has his minions that do a lot of the dirty
Yeah.
work, right? Shadow people, they growl and they're pinning you down, making you feel horrible. The little old hag thing, she's a wretched little thing.
Yeah.
She'll come and scare people and stuff too. The Grim Reaper dude will do the same. But then Hatman started, some of these people that were just like giving up. They're Hatman
Yeah.
gets his hands dirty too, and he started teaching them stuff.
Right.
And then I started hearing and getting these stories of people saying, my Hatman had dreadlocks. I'm like,
Oh,
oh,
right.
mine has freckles. Mine looks like this one dude. I'm like, oh no. And the stories of the people telling me what has been occurring to them. I mean, so there are people who are working for him,
Yeah.
and so his army is getting built, whether people want to acknowledge it or not. This is what's taking place, and it needs to be rectified because these are defeated people. These are people that are kind of possessed on a
Yeah.
spiritual plane, and it's sad. It's really sad, and to know that I've heard I've had my nose down trying to help people. That's what I
Yeah.
do. I don't charge people and say, hold on, $50 for your soul, I'll help you then. No.
Yeah.
It's like I help people, and I don't look out and see who else is taking my information and try to say I know what I'm doing. But I've heard that there's some out there that are saying, don't worry about them. They're not going to hurt you. They're
Yeah.
docile, and some people are letting their guard down, and I wonder if that's why there's been a bigger influx of other types of quote Hatman showing up,
Yeah.
because people are like, oh, it's okay to say yes to him. Okay, great. It's sad. It's really sad. So correcting the information out there is important,
Yeah.
and yeah. So.
Yeah. But just going back with something that you said earlier on, you're saying about facial features.
Mhm.
Other than the big grin, I didn't realise that anyone had seen any, like the eyes and nose, ears, and like you said about freckles and
Oh yeah.
all. I didn't realise that there's all that going on as well.
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah, there are ones that There are ones that vary. Yeah, that look different and look like a regular dude walking around,
Yeah,
trench coat and a hat, walking through your wall. Sometimes standing next to the other Hatman guy, the main one.
yeah,
And yeah, it's sad. It's changing out there, and there's a reason why it's changing. But that involves some other things I just can't speak to just yet.
yeah, yeah,
But yeah, it's been a crazy time to be dealing with the onslaught because I was warned it was going to get bad
yeah,
and that these things were going to infiltrate where it's not just a possibility you'll deal with these things at some point, it's a threat. They're
yeah.
aiming for you. They want all of us, not just a
Right.
handful.
Yeah,
So it's like, how do you make sure you never have your reality shaken up by seeing something like that? It is so horrifying. It
yeah.
is so horrifying. You're
So,
living
so
your days, and here's Hatman. Yeah.
yeah. So I was just going to say. So do you think, without saying it out loud, because I don't want the channel to go off, but do you think they're working on their own, or do you think they're working with certain agencies?
Which the
The
Hatman?
shadow people and the
Oh, shadow.
Hatman. Do you think they're working with human agencies without saying too much?
Oh,
If you
oh,
know what I mean?
yeah. Yeah. Well, if you can just think there's two groups, good and bad, just
Yeah,
throw them all into the same category, because they are aware of each other, but there's no
yeah,
honor among thieves, right? So sometimes they do their own things. Oh, it's so dark. It's so dark. But yeah, there's some fingers involved in there that involve certain political people and
yeah,
people
yeah,
in power.
yeah,
Yes, and unfortunately, I've seen some documentaries talking about how this is so crazy. Well, I can name names because he has this documentary out, Dr. Stephen Greer, and he had
yeah,
interviewed Prince of Liechtenstein, um, and he said that people in power, their goal was to uh, force the apocalypse, to force Jesus to return.
Oh,
Oh, yes. Like, I was like, "What was that all? Oh, wow." You know,
yeah,
I was like, What an ego." You know, like, "We're gonna take control here, and we're gonna make sure Jesus comes back a little bit sooner on our terms," you know?
yeah. By
Um,
destroying everything on the way.
yeah. I'm like, "Dude, it's" so people are cheering on some negative things that are just
Right.
like,
Yeah.
"Why would you who would go there? Like, are you that bored in your life that you're like, I blew up some countries, but now I wanna blow up the world." I don't
Yeah.
know. It's
Yeah.
nuts.
It is just ridiculous.
I want to force the return of Christ. I just man, I don't wanna be in your afterlife, dude. That's
Oh,
horrible. They think that, you gotta wonder why are they putting so much into this lifetime to play God?
yeah.
It's like, there's some ritualistic things that go on out there that they're hoping ensures their everlasting power to transfer. And
Yeah.
so I think sometimes that they feel if they do enough rotten stuff, that odd and bad energy goes into that.
Right.
So
Yeah.
maybe they are. Maybe they'll be a nice little minion king for the Satan. I don't know.
Oh, you never know. Yeah. I was just going to say, there's only one way to find out, but I don't really want to, be honest. I'd rather, I'd
Yeah.
rather never know.
Yeah. No, I wouldn't wanna no.
No.
I don't know what motivates people. It's, I heard a horrible story, and God forgive me for this one, but it's like, this poor lady that was so healthy. She did everything right, exercised every day, and everything was organic and, gets her sleep and all this stuff in, and she went out for a jog and got smushed by a truck, and it was over.
Oh,
I'm like, hold on. That was a whole lot you put into this life, and in an instant, just
it's
done.
gone.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it didn't matter what you built up, in that one body. So we've got to realize that what we're doing here, it matters to an extent, but you got to look deeper and bigger. There are things that can walk through the wall and
Yeah.
grab your soul out of your body. um, and it's in
Yeah.
the millions. It's not just me talking now. At one
No.
point, I sounded like a science fiction peddler. And as people come to realize, hashtag me too, see shadow people. It's like, uh, wow, if it's what I was told and how this all indicates, you guys, the clock is ticking. A shakeup needs to happen, and we're still walking out of, and I'm not a Bible thumper. I don't attend a church, but we're walking out of the churches because some guys in robes did bad things. And it's like, well, then your faith was in the wrong direction. It should be much higher up,
Yeah. Yeah.
they're just humans messing up. And it's sad. It's like we got to correct this, get ourselves to point our eyeballs in the right space, and don't let these things take advantage. If you are suspicious something is staring at you in your dreams, so-called dreams, probably
Yeah.
is. If it's
Yeah.
built in your room, probably is. They're looking for us, so
Yeah.
sucks.
Yeah. No. And thank you.
Yeah.
Right. Sorry. Right.
I don't see your chat room, so I don't know if there's people.
Oh, right. No, there's questions there, but a couple of them have come off. I'll see if you can go back and find them. Right. This next one's from Joe Weeks, the moderator. Do you think he's also a watcher using mirrors, etc.?
People have these different names for different definitions. It's like, say, a watcher. It's like a watcher
Yeah.
of what? Uh, he could see you in your head while you're sleeping. I mean,
Yeah.
he doesn't need a mirror. He doesn't need any of that. Shadow people either. They're just they're kind of in the fabric of everything. I
Yeah.
mean, think about how big that is. And as I said, a lot of people have had dreams. I mean, in the midst of a dream, they're like, "Woo, what a terrible nightmare!" Open their eyes. It's there because it
Yeah.
was in there. It's there. Um, so there aren't they if there were rules, they broke all of them. And we have
Yeah.
this Christian thought of, oh, we have innocence up until the age of 12. I have had people who remember being a toddler having Hatman threaten their lives. Hatman try to get them to commit suicide. A 3-year-old. A 3-year-old. I mean, imagine. I just it runs really deep and dark.
Yeah.
And the worst case scenarios you can imagine.
Yeah.
It's like, how can I had a guy write me, oh, this gives me chills. How can you be in a baby crib? He said he assumes he might have been 1.5, 2 years old, not even.
Yeah.
And Hatman showed up and emitted the thought to him, if you cry, I'm going to kill you. And he knew. I shut right up. A baby, First off, I don't know how the man has that kind of clear memory. I could barely remember this morning.
Oh, yeah. Same.
Like, what? But there's some.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, so we are really at war. This battle of all battles is going on in the privacy of your own home. Be
Yeah.
ready. The sightings of Jesus are going up exponentially
Yeah.
for all faiths. I have a good friend that's Jewish from Israel. Jesus walked into the room and sat down, floored them. I have another good friend. She's Muslim.
Yeah.
And, mutual respect with my friends. And, I'm like, they must think I'm a loon, but we just have a good time. Guess what? Jesus came to her too.
Yeah.
So it's there's no rules with limitations of what could come your way. I think we're getting an education of things to come, and be ready, be right, and understand yourself and where you stand. And it you don't have to be perfect. It's okay. Just have no doubts that
Yeah.
there's an opposing force.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Right, I've just got four more questions. Is that
That's
okay?
fine. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So this one's from Johnny Appleseed. He's wondering, do you think the shadow people are linked to the black-eyed kids?
Yes, I was told that's in the Secret War book, and that was before the topic of black-eyed kids came out. It's
Yeah.
essentially hybrids of a sort, and they wanted something that could live upon the earth but be controlled by them. So, because their bodies aren't, these alien beings are not made for our atmosphere or our gravity, and so number one thing you hear of people being abducted is
Yeah.
that they are, being experimented on, creating these half human, half hybrid children, and
Yeah.
they aren't cute. and
Oh no.
I've met many people too that have talked about, because again, I started, I had a UFO paranormal discussion group for over 15 years that
Yeah.
met monthly for 15 years. And I had a UFO website up before most people knew what a website was. And
Right.
I talked to these people face to face that have, said, oh gosh, I was given all these half human, half alien hybrids children to see which ones passed. It was like a sorting process. To the left, dump those. Oh, we're gonna keep that one,
Yeah.
and or shake the baby and like, yeah, this one's okay. I mean, can you imagine? I mean, where'd the rest go? Into, feeds, feeding.
Ooh.
I don't know what they're doing with them, but yeah. So it's crazy.
Yeah. Just a little bit.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh,
Next one.
but with the hybrids,
Oh,
because they got the connection
sorry.
to shadow people and they
Yeah.
control them, it's like, yeah, so there you go.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Thank you. Next one. You kind of already answered this, but I'll put up anyway from Joanne. Do you think the Hatman stroke shadow people are the cause of sleep paralysis?
Oh, there goes that word I hate. Yeah, we
Yeah.
are just talking about that, Joanne. So, quote, sleep paralysis was brought to the forefront to answer this paranormal phenomenon that I'd put out to the world on Coast to Coast. At one point, Coast to Coast had 20 million listeners worldwide.
Yeah.
So, and I was a regular for 20 years talking about this stuff. And millions of people came forward to say, I've had shadow people and Hatman experiences too. And then somebody thought they would come and define what I'm talking about. And little did I know, took my material, made a documentary, and said it's sleep paralysis, which is the point where, so you don't act out your dreams. You don't, if you dream that you're running, you're not actually running in your bed. So it's like this endorphin of a sort that keeps you calm and keeps you paralyzed. So
Right.
the doctors are saying you're having this problem of waking your body up, but your brain is awake. But they just can't seem to understand how they have a hat on or a suit or
Yeah.
shadowy figures with glowing red eyes. They haven't quite explained that, but they just say we're all hallucinating, having mass hysteria, um,
Yeah.
and thinking we're seeing the same things. It's ridiculous and ludicrous, but I guess they had to answer to something, huh? Because too many
Oh
people
yeah.
are waking up to this. So it's like,
Yeah.
ooh, they know the devil is coming. Let's
Yeah.
put them back to sleep. These
Yeah.
little wizards are explaining our own eyeballs again. I can't
Yeah.
stand it.
Throw some signs at them. That will confuse everyone.
So nuts, man.
Yeah. Right. This is from nickname again. The next one. How did Heidi meet Earl Grey? Can she talk about what her dad's work was?
Oh boy. Earl, he is a nice guy. He's with MUFON. I reached out to him to interview him for my show. So my
Yeah.
show, I'm a host on Coast to Coast AM's paranormal podcast network. So my show is called Dark Becomes Light
Yeah.
because I have a lot of people dealing with some pretty crazy stuff, not just shadow people, but could be near-death experiences or whatever. And I offer them to write into my show at HeidiHollis.com or shadowfolks.com and tell me their stories. Tell me as much detail as they want, and I'll kind of address it on the program. And if people want to listen to that, just Google "Dark Becomes Light" with Heidi Hollis, and because it could be hard in other countries sometimes to hear it. But every other show I'll interview somebody, and that's how I got to know Earl Grey. I had him on.
Yeah.
And my father, oh boy, she must have saw my post online. So, boy. So I didn't know what my dad was really involved in, and I still don't know fully, but he was there's something called the Northern Air Defense System over here, or NORAD. And there's like 5 or 6 stations in this country.
Yeah.
Everybody knows of the big one in Cheyenne Mountain facility that's underground over there. My dad worked for them. He had his own station. And so he surveilled the skies for the United States. And so he had a pretty high clearance doing that type of thing. And to say exactly what my dad was up to, there's a conundrum I'm trying to figure out in the family. And I've spoke about it a few times on different shows. And this one, if you could help me figure it out, yay. I don't know if most people have been a fan of X-Files at one point or another.
Yes.
So there was a spinoff called Millennium, the television series, it was called. And the detective that would come on the program, X-Files, sometimes, his name was Frank Black, and he was like a psychic detective of a sort.
Yeah.
And he worked for this group called the Millennium Group. And it seemed to deal with like occult stuff, apocalyptic things, ritualistic stuff.
Yeah.
And that's so crazy. Imagine it was the 3rd and final season of Millennium. And I'm watching it with my friends, and I just like went into my kitchen to grab something, and my friends start laughing, saying, Heidi, there's a lady on the new season that looks just like you. And I'm like, oh, come on. And I sit down, and oh my goodness, it's my doppelganger. Yeah. And I was like, well, that's weird, And then they called her Agent Hollis. And I almost, we just like froze. It's like a Twilight Zone moment.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's weird. If I wasn't the only brown lady do what I do, that might be a coincidence, but I'll let it slide. And then they introduced her sister, and I had my sister's name. And then they introduced her father. That had my father's name. First and last name. First and last name. And guess what he did for the government?
Mara?
She's very similar to what my dad. And I'm like, but I didn't know it then. And I called my dad. I'm like, Dad, we're on TV. Yeah. And he's like, what show? And I told him. All he did was go, let's just say I found some more answers. And I'm still I'm still digging. It's crazy. But if you can find out why my whole family's been portrayed on an apocalyptic television series, as I'm the person that named the devil in the world today, that'd be interesting. So there you have it with my doppelganger. I mean, so my dad, I don't know his full story, but I'm learning some more, and it's been interesting.
Earl's been on air a few times. I speak to him every so often. He's a top guy.
Who's that?
Earl Grey.
Oh yes, he's awesome.
Yeah. Nice he came on because he's a musician as well, isn't he?
Yeah, he is.
He came on playing the guitar and doing some singing.
Oh yeah,
pretty cool. So yeah,
I've chatted with him quite a few times on the phone and online and whatnot, and it's he's pretty cool, pretty in depth.
Very down to earth.
And interesting enough, I mean, his background's in the medical field, so is mine. So
strange, isn't it? It's too coincidental, I think.
Mm.
Synchronicity, that's what it is.
There you go. Yes.
Yeah, I was trying to think of the word. I got there in the end.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. We've got one last question, if that's
Mhm.
okay.
Yeah.
It's a nickname again. Is Shadow Man, Hatman, Mothman?
I don't believe so. I wouldn't be surprised if they weren't connected. I mean, if they were connected, I mean.
Yeah.
I was actually once invited to speak at the Mothman conference, and unfortunately, I couldn't make it.
Oh.
But Mothman, I lived in Chicago for a bit, and they have their own Mothman, or
Yes.
Batman. And I was living there
Yeah.
when they were happening, and I drove around. I was looking for that thing. I could not find it. I was like, darn it, where is it? But he was showing up all over. He still is showing up all over the city,
Yeah.
apparently. And there's a spot in Wisconsin it's happening in as well. I'd have to look more into it. But, again, it's like, what side of the fence are they on? Are they positive? Did they help give warning? I guess they did in a sense, but it seems like they were lingering to kind of collect up on some of those souls that might be cashed in at that moment. I don't know. But it
Yeah.
seems kind of dark, and it seems kind of, I don't know. It's just a mystery of a sort. But definitely something that is worth pondering.
Yeah.
But it's surely not human.
Well, no.
No, but I had a friend that actually witnessed something like that.
Yeah.
It was it's just so twisted. But she belonged to this church. The husband came to the church in the middle of the sermon and said, "Please come to my house. Something's got my wife. We need prayer," or whatever. And so they all go
Yeah.
over to the house to go pray at the door, and the door pops open. And this sounds nuts, but this really tall, like, demonic thing is what she describes. It kind of sounds just like Mothman, with big
Yeah.
bat wings, with glowing red eyes, with jagged teeth, opened up the freaking door in front of the whole church, and they all shrieked and started running. And she said it was the craziest thing. Like, there's no rocks around, and it just
Yeah.
kept manifesting rocks and chucking it at them.
Oh.
I'm like, what the heck? So I think these sightings happen in different places as well. But the Mothman in Chicago, it's really it's kind of scattered. People are like, they think there's a guy just standing there on the street, and then it just opens its wings and goes straight up, flies up.
Oh.
Yeah. And sometimes it's been in bad neighborhoods, and they think
Yeah.
they're encroaching on their hood. I've heard some
Yeah.
of those too, and they're like, "What are you doing in our What?" So I heard one of those. I was like, "Oh, that had to scare the crap out of them." I was like, "Wow!" I knew what neighborhood they were speaking of. I
Yeah.
just I was like, "Not in that neighborhood." I mean, Mothman's lucky to have lived and tell the story.
Yeah. That might be why he's not been seen for a while.
Yeah, right. Yeah, maybe there you go.
He's
But
locked himself in a bathroom somewhere.
in the bathroom, I swear to you. Oh,
Safest place.
the almighty bathroom, man. I'll
Yeah.
never forget being thrown out. I was so terrified.
Yeah. No, massive thank you for coming on tonight.
Yeah.
Sorry I was late.
Oh, I was worried. I was like, he's not coming. I'm like, what the heck? What happened to him?
I was doing about 100 things at once and nothing was working.
Yeah.
It's just been one of those days. I got up at 5:30 this morning, and everything that could go wrong did.
Oh, one of those days. Those happen a
So
lot.
I was like, I'm just going to keep going, just plow through it, and hopefully it'll get better. And it eventually did.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. I'm glad.
So.
Yeah, it happens. When I used to do 8 shows a week, I was running ragged. I'm like, I would be broadcasting on my cell phone driving home in Chicago traffic. Yeah, I'm here. I'm fine. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I was like, oh man. So yeah, I got burnt out doing it too much, but trying to get back up to, doing more shows here and there, and giving people the correct message. And yeah, it's not about owning as much as it is informing people the right way. So it comes in the form of owning, like the
Yeah.
trademarks and stuff. It's like, what's the language people speak? Oh, you gotta file a trademark and copyright. Well, copyright's been done, but yeah. So
Yeah.
it's been an interesting journey. It's been a hard one. I guess apparently I'm the only person that's ever done it before. It's like,
Oh,
introducing these two odd topics to the world
yeah.
of a lot of critical people when it comes to the paranormal.
Yeah. No, appreciate everything you do.
Yeah,
Honestly, really
yeah.
do.
Thanks for having
Hopefully
me on.
hopefully you'll come back on again.
Yes, and I'd love to tell people, go to shadowfolks.com or HeidiHollis.com. And again, and I also have a paranormal comic strip. Follow me on Instagram at the Outlanders. So the Outlanders comic, and that's a
Right.
.com as well, but
Yeah,
Instagram.
I've put all your links up in the description on YouTube. So
Nice, cool,
everything you've sent me is on there. So you should be able to find it from there.
sweet. Yeah, and
So,
if people have issues, social media, I'm always talking to people on there. So at one Heidi Hollis, and don't be shy. People are like, I know you're super busy, but I'm like, if I'm talking to you, I'm good. Don't worry.
yeah.
Yeah,
No, but
so
massive thank you for coming on. Really do appreciate
thanks
it.
for having me on here. It
It's
was
been
great,
great.
and your whole crew that reached out to make sure I got on here too was thank you.
Yes. Yeah.
Nicola, I believe is.
Yeah. Nickname Nicola.
Oh,
Yeah.
Nicola? Nicola. Okay. I didn't
Yeah.
know. I was like, that. I'm like, how do I say that one? Okay. Nicola. All right.
That girl.
That lady.
Yeah.
All
We'll go with
right.
that.
Thank you
Right.
kindly.
Yeah. So just before I go, I'm doing another show in 2 hours.
Fun.
With a guy called. You won't. Can't believe I forgot his name already.
Ooh.
George Lunsford. George Lunsford. Like I said, it's been one of them days. I've forgotten my own name.
I've got to
It is
do my
that bad.
I got to do my podcast here shortly too. But that's the beauty of podcasts. I can do it whenever you want, as long as you get it in.
Yeah. Well, I've got to record one tomorrow. I'm actually talking about Black Eyed Kids.
Oh,
So, yeah,
fun.
it's about 15, 20 minutes I've got to do. So,
those are not as likely to get you as Hatman or Shadow people. So you're good.
no, and I'm going to be sat here doing it. So it's even better. Right.
All right. It was a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Absolutely loved it. Thank you again. I'll be in touch and hopefully get you back on soon.
Sounds good.
Yep, that'd be great.
All right. You take care now.
Yep, you too.
Okay.
All right. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Right. So just before I go, I'm back on at midnight with George Lunsford. He's an author. He's one of my encounters has been put in his book. So if you guys can make it for that, that'd be great. If not, there is nothing next Wednesday. I've had to cancel a couple of shows. So there's nothing next Wednesday. The next one is next Friday with Alex. The Friday after, we haven't got one, but the Wednesday before that is a flying solo and it's a music one. But I'll keep you all updated on that anyway. So again, sorry about being late. Hope I made up for it. Heidi was a great guest, and we'll see you in just under 2 hours. So a quick siesta and then back on it. Take care. Good night.